Captain Minho stood at the viewing window of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge, watching the massive station grow larger on the screen. The Galactic Unity Council's headquarters looked like nothing he had ever seen before. It was huge, made of materials that seemed to shimmer and change colors. Ships from dozens of different species came and went like insects around a hive. "Nervous?" asked Una, stepping beside him. She was Earth's ambassador, chosen for this historic moment. First contact with an entire galaxy of alien species, a little, Minho admitted. "We've been alone for so long. Now we find out the galaxy is full of life, and they've been working together for thousands of years." Una smiled, but her eyes were serious. "They've invited us to join them. That's good news. We just need to prove we belong." The docking process took an hour. When they finally stepped off their ship, they entered a world that seemed impossible. The station's interior was massive, with gravity that shifted depending on where you walked. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the corridors. Some were tall and looked like they were made of crystal. Others were clouds of glowing gas that floated in special containers. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Minho couldn't even tell which end was the head. Two guards met them at the entrance. They were Vexitari, standing nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like blue metal. They didn't speak, just gestured for the humans to follow. The council chamber was circular and enormous. Seats rose in tiers around a central platform. Hundreds of aliens filled those seats, representing species from across the galaxy. At the highest tier sat 3 beings who radiated authority. These were the council arbiters, the leaders who made all the major decisions. "Humans of Earth," one of the arbiters spoke. Its voice came through a translator device, making the words sound flat and emotionless. "You have requested to join the Galactic Unity Council. We have reviewed your petition. We have questions." Una stepped forward onto the central platform. She looked small and fragile compared to the massive chamber around her, but her voice was steady. "We're honored to be here. Humanity wishes to learn from you and contribute to the galactic community." "Contribute?" Another arbiter spoke. This one was made of crystal that reflected light in strange patterns. "What could you possibly contribute? Your species is barely capable of travel between your own planets. You have no special technology. You have no unique resources." Minho felt anger rise in his chest, but Una remained calm. "We may be young compared to you, but we have survived and grown. We've learned to adapt to challenges. We believe that's valuable." The third arbiter, a being that looked like gas contained in a shimmering field, made a sound that might have been laughter. "Let us be honest, humans. We are considering rejecting your petition entirely. You are primitives. Look at your weapons. You still use kinetic projectiles. You shoot pieces of metal at each other. It's barbaric." A large screen appeared above the central platform. It showed footage from Earth's military exercises. Ships firing missiles, soldiers with rifles, explosions and smoke. To the humans, it looked normal. To the council, it apparently looked horrifying. "You use explosives," the crystal arbiter said, disgust clear even through the translator. "Your species still fights with chemistry and fire. We evolved past such things 10,000 cycles ago. Then how do you fight?" Minho asked before he could stop himself. The chamber went silent. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward him. Una shot him a warning look, but it was too late. The first arbiter leaned forward. "We fight with honor. When 2 species have a dispute, they engage in the proving. Each side sends 1 champion. The champions face each other with energy weapons at proper range. It is clean. It is merciful. It tests skill and technology, not brutality." "And everyone follows these rules?" Minho asked. "Everyone in the council," the arbiter said. "It has kept peace for 10,000 cycles. This is civilization, human, not your primitive explosions." Una could see the situation turning bad. She had to do something quickly, or Earth's chance to join the galaxy would be lost. She took a breath and made a decision that would change everything. "Then let us prove ourselves," she said loudly. "You have this proving tradition. Let humanity participate. Let us show you what we can do." The chamber erupted with noise. Aliens speaking in dozens of languages, their translators creating a wall of sound. The arbiters consulted with each other for several minutes while Una and Minho waited. Finally, the first arbiter raised a hand. Silence fell immediately. "Very well," it said. "We accept your proposal. Humanity will face a council champion in the proving. If you win, we will reconsider your petition. If you lose, well, no species has ever defeated a council champion. You will go home and not return for 100 cycles. And if we refuse, Yuna asked. Then we reject your petition now and you will never be welcome in council space. Yuna looked at Minho. He gave a tiny nod. They both knew they had no choice. We accept, Yuna said. The Crystal Arbiter made that laughing sound again. Excellent. We will assign the Vextari champion Kormesh to face you. He has fought in 300 provings and never lost. You will have 3 days to prepare. Choose your champion wisely, humans. Choose someone you don't mind losing. As the humans were escorted out of the chamber, Minho could hear the aliens talking and laughing. They thought this would be entertainment. A quick lesson for the primitive species that dared to think it belonged among the stars. Back on the horizon's edge, Yuna and Minho sat in the captain's quarters. They had just made a huge gamble and they both knew it. We need our best pilot, Yuna said. Someone who can handle pressure. Minho was already calling up files on his computer. I know exactly who we need. Lieutenant Sunho. He flew in the Orbital Defense Force for 8 years. He's never lost a combat scenario. Will he do it? He's on the crew. I'll ask him. Minho paused. Yuna, do you really think we can win this? They've been fighting this way for thousands of years. Yuna looked out at the stars. They've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. That's exactly why we might have a chance. Lieutenant Sunho checked his fighter systems for the 10th time. Everything was green. Weapons loaded. Engines running perfectly. Life support stable. He was as ready as he would ever be. How are you feeling? Captain Minho's voice came through the communication system. Ready, Sunho replied. It wasn't entirely true. His hands were sweating inside his gloves. His heart was beating faster than normal. But he had trained for this. Not for fighting aliens, of course. Nobody had trained for that. But he knew how to fight in space. He knew how to survive, remember, Minho said. They expect you to fight like them. Don't do that. I won't, Sunho promised. Outside his small fighter, the arena waited. It was a designated area in an asteroid field, marked with floating beacons. Thousands of ships from hundreds of species surrounded the area at a safe distance. They were here to watch. The Council had broadcast this fight to every corner of the galaxy. Billions of aliens were watching right now, waiting to see the primitive human get destroyed. Sunho took a deep breath and launched his fighter into the arena. On the other side, Kormesh did the same. The Vextari champion flew a fighter 3 times the size of Sunho's craft. It was sleek and dark, covered in weapons and shields. It looked like something designed to kill, and it had done exactly that 300 times before. A neutral voice announced the start of the match. Sunho watched his sensors carefully. Kormesh was 45 kilometers away. At that range, the alien's energy weapons could reach him easily. 1 hit would be enough. The Vextari shields would vaporize any energy weapon Sunho had. So this should be a simple trade of shots. The one with better aim or better shields would win. That's what the aliens expected. Kormesh fired first. A bright beam of plasma streaked across space toward Sunho's fighter. In a normal proving, both fighters would be stationary or moving in predictable patterns. The attacking computer would calculate the shot and it would be nearly impossible to miss. But Sunho didn't stay still. The moment his sensors detected the energy spike from Kormesh's weapons, he fired his maneuvering thrusters. His fighter rolled hard to the left. The plasma beam passed by, missing by less than 10 meters. In the watching fleet, aliens made sounds of surprise. That wasn't how the proving worked. You were supposed to take the shot, trust your shields, and return fire. You didn't dodge. Dodging was undignified. Kormesh fired again, and again Sunho moved. He twisted his fighter, diving down, then rolling up. Each movement was violent and unpredictable. His body pressed hard against the restraints as the G-forces tried to tear him apart. But he kept moving. Why is the human moving like that? Someone asked in the council chamber. Arbiter Kelthanis, the crystal being, watched the screen with confusion. This isn't proper combat form. Ambassador Yuna stood near the back of the chamber, her face expressionless, but inside she was smiling. This was exactly what they had planned. Sunho wasn't just dodging randomly. He was closing the distance. 40 kilometers, 35, 30. With each evasive move, he got closer to Kormesh. The alien champion kept firing, his weapons heating up from constant use, but hitting a target that moved like this was almost impossible. His targeting computer couldn't predict where the human would be next. 25 kilometers. 20. The aliens watching began to realize something was wrong. The human wasn't fighting back. He was just getting closer.
What was the point?
At close range, both fighters would be destroyed. It was suicide. At 15 kilometers, Cormesh changed tactics. He tried to back away to keep the distance. But Sunho had spent 8 years fighting in Earth's orbital defense force. He knew how to pursue. He knew how to corner prey in three-dimensional space. 10 kilometers. The alien was panicking now. His shots became wild, desperate. Sunho dodged them all. His body screamed in pain from the constant maneuvering, but he pushed through it. Just a little closer. 5 kilometers. 3 kilometers. 2 kilometers. At 2 kilometers distance, Sunho finally opened fire. But he didn't use energy weapons. He used autocannons, guns that fired hundreds of depleted uranium rounds per second. Old technology. Primitive technology. The kind of weapons that made the Council laugh at humanity. The rounds tore through space faster than Cormesh could react. His shields were designed to stop high-energy weapons. They created a barrier that could absorb or deflect plasma and lasers. But they weren't designed for hundreds of physical projectiles hitting from multiple angles in rapid succession. The shields flickered and failed. The rounds punched through the alien fighter's hull like it was paper. Metal tore. Systems exploded. Atmosphere vented into space. Cormesh's fighter didn't vaporize cleanly like in a proper proving. It was shredded. Pieces of hull spun away. Bits of machinery tumbled through the asteroid field. The Vextari champion died instantly when his cockpit was breached, but his body wasn't vaporized. It was just there, floating in the wreckage. The silence that followed was complete. Thousands of ships hung in space, their crews unable to process what they had just witnessed. In 300 provings, Cormesh had never lost. He had never even been hit, and now he was dead, killed in a way that seemed impossible. Sunho brought his fighter to a stop. His hands shook on the controls. He felt sick. He had killed before in simulations and in a few real encounters with pirates near Earth, but never like this. Never with billions of people watching. Never to prove humanity deserved a place among the stars. Horizon's Edge, this is Sunho, he said quietly. Target neutralized. Requesting permission to return to ship. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages. Some were angry. Some were terrified. Some were demanding that the humans be expelled immediately. Ambassador Yuna walked to the central platform. The guards tried to stop her, but she pushed past them. She stood where everyone could see her and waited. Eventually, the noise died down enough for her to speak. You asked to see how humanity fights, she said. Her voice was calm but hard. We showed you. This is how we survived on our world. This is how we've always fought. We don't stand at a distance and hope our shields are better. We don't trust in honor and tradition. We close the distance. We adapt to our enemy. We do whatever it takes to survive. That was barbaric. Someone shouted from the upper tiers. That was murder. That was war, Yuna replied. Real war. Not your ritual duels. Not your honorable provings. War is ugly and brutal and it doesn't care about your rules. You've forgotten that because you've been safe for so long. You've made fighting into a game. But out there, beyond your council space, there are things that won't play your game. What will you do when you meet them? Arbiter Kelthonis spoke, his voice shaking. We have maintained peace for 10,000 cycles with our system. You've maintained peace because everyone agreed to your system, Minho said, stepping up beside Yuna. But what happens when someone doesn't agree? What happens when you face an enemy that wants to win, not fight honorably? The council had no answer. They had never needed one. Humanity has accepted your proving, Yuna continued. We fought by your rules. You said one champion against one champion. You said the winner would be reconsidered for membership. We won. So now you must decide. Will you keep your word, or will you reject us because we didn't lose the way you expected? The arbiters consulted with each other for a long time. The humans waited. Finally they spoke. The proving is complete. Humanity has won. Against all expectation, against all tradition, you have defeated a council champion. We will honor our agreement. Earth will be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Unity Council. But there was no celebration in the chamber. The aliens looked at the humans with new eyes now. Not with contempt, but with something else. Something that might have been fear. The footage played again and again on screens across the galaxy. Cormesh's fighter being torn apart. The pieces spinning through space. The human craft moving in impossible patterns. dodging weapons that should never miss. Every species that was part of the council watched it. Many watched it dozens of times, trying to understand what had happened. 3 days after the proving, the council called an emergency session. This time, every seat in the chamber was filled. Representatives from over 200 species wanted to be present. Some called for humanity to be expelled despite their victory. Others wanted Earth destroyed before humans could spread their violent ways. A few, a very few, were curious to learn more. Captain Minho and Ambassador Yuna returned to the council station, but this time they brought someone new with them. Jiwon was a civilian, a young woman who had studied military history at Earth's finest universities. She looked nervous as she stood beside the two officers, but she carried a computer tablet filled with information. "Humans," Arbiter Kelthanis began, "you have been granted provisional membership, but the Council has questions. Many questions. Your combat method in the proving was disturbing. We need to understand what we have allowed into our community. We'll answer any questions you have," Yuna said. Another Arbiter spoke, the gas being called Drelmos. "The recordings show your fighter moving in ways we've never seen. How is this possible? What technology allows such movement?" Minho almost laughed but caught himself. "It's not special technology. It's just maneuvering thrusters. Any spacecraft can move like that if the pilot is trained. Don't your pilots train for evasive movement?" The question was met with confused silence. Finally, a Vextari representative stood. "Why would we train for that? In proper combat, both sides face each other directly. Moving erratically is dishonorable. It suggests you fear your opponent." "It suggests we want to live," Minho replied. "In space combat, a moving target is harder to hit." "This is basic tactics." "Tactics?" Kelthanis asked. "Explain this word." Jiwon stepped forward. This was why she was here. Tactics are the methods used in combat. How you position your forces, how you move, how you attack and defend. On Earth, we've been studying tactics for thousands of years. Thousands of years? A crystalline Helion representative shimmered with what might have been shock.
Why would you need to study combat for thousands of years?
"Because we've been fighting for thousands of years," Jiwon said simply. She tapped her tablet and images appeared on the chamber's main screen. Battles from human history. Ancient warriors with swords. Medieval knights on horses. Soldiers in trenches. Modern armies with tanks and aircraft. Humans have always fought each other. War is part of our history. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens speaking over each other. Their translators creating chaos. The arbiters called for silence several times before order was restored. "You're telling us," Drelmos said slowly, "that your species has been in a state of total war for your entire recorded history?" "Not total war," Jiwon corrected. "We've had periods of peace. But yes, somewhere on Earth there was almost always some kind of conflict happening. Different nations fighting over resources or territory or beliefs. We've fought each other in every environment you can imagine. On land, at sea, in the air, in space. We've used every weapon we could create, from rocks and sticks to nuclear bombs." "Nuclear weapons?" someone asked. "You've used those on each other?" "Twice," Jiwon admitted. "And the horror of what they did made us very careful about using them again. But yes, we've used them. We've used chemical weapons, biological weapons. We've created weapons specifically designed to kill other humans as efficiently as possible." A small alien that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke up. "How are you not extinct? How did your species survive constant warfare?" "We learned," Jiwon said. "Every war taught us something. We studied our victories and our defeats. We wrote books about strategy and tactics. We trained our soldiers in academies and war colleges. We developed doctrines for different types of combat. We've been getting better at war for our entire history." "Better at killing your own kind," a Helion said with disgust. "Yes," Jiwon agreed quietly. "We're very good at killing. We're not proud of that, but it's the truth." Arbiter Kelthanis leaned forward. Show us what you mean by these doctrines and strategies." For the next 2 hours, Jiwon gave the council a basic introduction to human military thought. She explained combined arms, how different types of forces work together. She showed them flanking maneuvers where you attack from the side or behind. She described logistics, the science of keeping armies supplied. She touched on intelligence gathering, psychological warfare, and guerrilla tactics. The aliens listened in growing horror. They had thought the proving was shocking. That was nothing compared to this. Humans didn't just fight. They had made fighting into a science. They studied it. They practiced it. They invented new ways to do it more effectively. You have schools for this? Someone asked. You train your children to fight? We have military academies, Minho confirmed. Young adults can choose to join the military and receive training. It's voluntary, not forced. But yes, we take military education very seriously. How many wars has humanity fought? Kelthonis asked. G1 checked her tablet. Major wars, hundreds. If you count every conflict, every battle, every skirmish, tens of thousands probably, maybe more. We don't even have records of the earliest ones. The silence that followed was heavy. These beings had maintained peace for 10,000 cycles through their ritual combat. They had a few dozen provings per century, each one carefully arranged and monitored. The idea of thousands of wars was beyond their understanding. A drifter representative, barely visible in its containment field, spoke in a whisper that the translators made loud. You called us death speakers once, human. But you are the true death speakers. Your entire civilization is built on war. No, Yuna said firmly. Our civilization exists despite war, not because of it. We fought so much because we had no choice. Earth had no unified government for most of our history. Different groups competed for the same resources. We fought or we died. But we also built cities and created art and made music and raised families. War is part of our history, but it's not all we are. But you're very good at it, Kelthana said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Yuna admitted. We're very good at it. And now we're here in your galaxy and you're afraid of what that means. Should we be? The Arbiter asked. Minho stepped forward. Let me ask you something. Your system has kept you safe for 10,000 cycles. That's impressive. But what happens when someone comes along who doesn't care about your rules? What happens when you face an enemy that doesn't want an honorable proving? What happens when you meet an enemy that just wants to win? That would never happen, Avextari said confidently. All civilized species understand honor. That's the problem, Minho said. You're assuming everyone will be civilized. You're assuming everyone will follow your rules. But the universe is big and it's full of surprises. What if something comes from outside council space? Something that doesn't know about your traditions? Something that wants to conquer or destroy? The aliens had no answer. They had never considered the possibility. Their system had worked for so long that they believed it would always work. Humanity doesn't want to conquer you, Yuna said. We're not here to start wars. We're here because we want to join the galactic community. We want to learn from you. We want to trade with you. We want peace. But we also know how to defend ourselves. And if something threatens the council, we can help defend it too. With your brutal tactics, Kelthanis said. With whatever tactics are necessary to survive, Yuna replied. That's what we're offering. Not aggression, but protection. Not war, but the knowledge of how to win one if we must. The session ended without any decisions being made. The council needed time to think about what they had learned. As the humans returned to their ship, they knew they had changed something fundamental in the galaxy. These species had lived in peace for so long that they had forgotten what real danger looked like. They were about to remember. The emergency alert reached Earth 3 months after humanity joined the Council. Admiral Daehyun was in his office at Earth Space Command when the message came through. His face went pale as he read it. Get me the Council station, he ordered. Priority channel. When the connection was established, he saw chaos. The Council chamber was full of panicked aliens shouting over each other. Arbiter Kelthanis was trying to restore order but failing. What's happened? Daehyun demanded. Invasion, Kelthanis said, his crystal form flickering with stress. From beyond the galactic rim, ships we've never seen before. They're not responding to communication. They're not following any protocols. They're just attacking. How many ships? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. They destroyed the outer colonies in hours. 15 worlds have gone silent. Our fleets tried to engage them in proper proving formations and they were slaughtered. Daehyun felt a chill run down his spine. This was exactly what Minho had warned about. An enemy that didn't play by the Council's rules. I'm assembling Earth's fleet, he said. We'll be there in 72 hours. In the meantime, tell your fleets to stop using proving formations. Tell them to scatter and retreat. Save as many ships as you can. Scatter? Retreat? Kelthanis sounded horrified. That's dishonorable. That's survival, Daehyun shouted. You're not fighting a proving anymore. You're fighting a war. Listen to me or watch your people die. He cut the connection and started giving orders. Within hours, every human military ship was preparing to launch. They didn't have many compared to the massive fleets of the Council species. but what they had was well-trained and ready. Commander Hana led the human carrier group. She was a veteran of the Mars conflicts, experienced in coordinated fleet operations. As her ships entered Council space, she saw the disaster unfolding. Council vessels drifted in space, torn apart. Debris fields marked where entire fleets had tried to stand and fight in traditional formations. "This is bad," her tactical officer said. "The aliens are getting slaughtered out there." "Not for long," Hana replied. "Open a channel to all Council vessels in this sector. Tell them to fall back to the Helios Gate. We'll make our stand there." The Helios Gate was a strategic choke point, a narrow passage between two massive nebulas. It was one of the few places where the enemy would be forced to come through a confined space. Hana studied the maps and started planning. When Admiral Daehyun arrived with the main fleet, he found Hana already positioning forces. Council ships mixed with human vessels in patterns the aliens had never seen before. "Report," Daehyun ordered. "We've got about 200 Council ships and 50 of ours," Hana said. "The enemy is coming with at least 600 vessels. They'll be here in 6 hours. Then we have 6 hours to teach the Council how to really fight. Get me their fleet commanders." The meeting that followed was intense. Alien commanders who had trained for ritual combat now had to learn real military tactics in a few hours. Daehyun kept it simple. "You will not spread out in a line and trade shots," he said firmly. "You will form groups of 5 to 7 ships. Each group will support the others. When one ship is targeted, the others cover it. You will use the asteroids for protection. You will aim for their engines and weapons, not their main hulls. You will focus fire on one target at a time until it's destroyed. Then move to the next." "This is not proper combat form," a Vextari commander protested. "This is the only way you survive," Daehyun replied. "Now listen carefully. I'm going to explain something called combined arms warfare." The Ravagers arrived exactly on schedule. They came in a massive swarm, hundreds of ships moving together like a school of fish. They didn't have formation or organization that humans would recognize. They just came forward in overwhelming numbers. "All ships, this is Daehyun," the Admiral broadcast. "Hold your positions. Wait for my command. Remember your training." The enemy fleet reached weapons range and opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space. But the Council ships weren't lined up waiting to be shot anymore. They moved, using the asteroids for cover just like Daehyun had taught them. Return fire came from multiple angles. "Group 7, enemy cluster at bearing 245, Hana called out. "Concentrate fire." 7 ships, 4 Council and 3 human, all turned their weapons on a single enemy vessel. The combined firepower overwhelmed its shields in seconds. The ship broke apart. "Good kill," Hana confirmed. "Group 7, next target, bearing 250. All across the battlefield, human officers were directing mixed groups of ships. The aliens were clumsy at first, still fighting against instincts that told them to face the enemy directly. But they were learning fast. Fear is a powerful teacher. Lieutenant Nari was a tactical officer on one of the human destroyers. She watched her screens as the battle developed. The Ravagers had numbers, but they fought without coordination. They just swarmed forward, expecting to overwhelm through sheer mass. "They're not adapting," she said to her captain. "They keep coming through the same approaches even though we're hitting them hard there." "They probably haven't faced organized resistance before," the captain replied. "They're used to overwhelming less advanced species. Use that. Guide our groups to the choke points. We'll turn this into a killing field." The battle raged for 8 hours. Slowly the tide began to turn. The Ravagers lost ships faster than they could advance. Council crews that had never faced real combat were fighting side by side with humans, learning with every minute that passed. A Helian ship took heavy damage, its shields failing. Immediately 2 human frigates moved to cover it, putting themselves between the wounded vessel and the enemy fire. "Why are they protecting us?" the Helian captain asked in confusion. "We're not even the same species." "Because that's what you do in war," Nari replied over the communication channel. "You protect your allies. You work together. That's how you win." Admiral Daehyun watched the battle from his flagship. The enemy was starting to pull back. They had lost nearly 300 ships while the Council forces had lost less than 50. It was a victory, but he knew it was just the beginning. "They'll be back," he said to his staff. "And next time they'll bring more ships. We need to use this time to train every Council fleet in real combat tactics." A message came through from Arbiter Kelthanis. The crystal being appeared on the screen. and Daehyun could see cracks in his form from stress. "Admiral, your tactics. They worked. Our casualties were far less than expected. The enemy has retreated. For now," Daehyun said. "They'll analyze what happened and come back stronger. We need to prepare. I'm requesting permission to establish a training program for all Council military forces." "Granted. Whatever you need." "Admiral, we were wrong about humanity. We thought your ways were barbaric, but you saved us today. You saved thousands of lives." "We did what was necessary," Daehyun replied. "Now we need to make sure every ship in your fleet can do the same. This war is just starting." As the surviving ships regrouped at the Helios Gate, mixed crews of humans and aliens worked together to repair damage and tend to the wounded. The aliens looked at their human allies with new understanding. These people who they had considered primitive, who they had looked down on for using barbaric weapons, had just saved their civilization. Commander Hana stood on her ship's bridge looking at the tactical display. More enemy contacts were appearing on the edge of the sensors. The Ravagers were already coming back and they were bringing more ships. "All crews, this is Hana," she broadcast. "Good work today. You fought well. But the enemy is returning and we have work to do. Get some rest. Repair your ships. In 12 hours we fight again, and this time, you know what to do." All across the fleet, exhausted crews returned to their duties. The Council species had learned their first real lesson in war, and under human guidance they were starting to understand what it would take to survive. The war lasted 2 years. 2 years of fighting, learning, and adaptation. General Taiyang stood in what used to be a council assembly hall, but was now the Galactic Military Academy. The first class of alien officers sat before him, representing 20 different species. They looked tired. Training under human instructors was nothing like their traditional education. "Today's lesson is about logistics," Taiyang began. "The most boring and most important part of warfare. You can have the best weapons and the bravest soldiers, but if they run out of fuel and ammunition, you lose." A young Vexitari raised one of his 4 arms. His name was Kesh, and he had been a merchant before the war. "General, in our old provings, each ship carried what it needed. There was no supply chain." "That's because your provings lasted hours at most," Taeyang replied. "Real wars last months or years. Ships need fuel. Weapons need ammunition. Crews need food. Maintaining supply lines is how you win long campaigns. It's how humanity has won wars for thousands of years." He pulled up a holographic display showing supply routes across Council space. Red lines marked where human supply ships moved resources from production centers to frontline fleets. Blue lines showed where Council species were trying to do the same. "You're getting better," Taeyang said, "but you still think too small. You need to plan for entire fleets, not individual ships. You need backup supply depots. You need ships dedicated to transport, not combat. War is a machine, and that machine needs fuel." Instructor Minji was teaching a different class on the training station orbiting the Council's capital world. She was a former Earth Marine, tough and patient. In front of her were 30 alien soldiers from 5 different species, learning basic infantry tactics. No, she said, stopping the exercise. "When you move forward, you don't all go at once. Half of you move while the other half covers you. Then you switch. It's called bounding overwatch. The enemy can't hit everyone if half of you are shooting back." A Helian soldier, his crystalline body refracting the light, looked confused. "But in the proving traditions, we advance together to show unity and courage. In real combat, you advance smart to stay alive," Minji replied. "Unity doesn't matter if you're all dead. Now let's try again, and this time use the cover I set up. Those barriers are there for a reason." The aliens tried again. It was awkward and slow, but they were learning. Minji watched them with satisfaction. 3 months ago, these same soldiers would have walked straight into enemy fire without taking cover. Now they were thinking about angles, suppression fire, and tactical movement. They were thinking like soldiers. At the front lines, the war was reaching its end. Commander Hana led a combined fleet of 200 ships, half human and half Council species. They had just received intelligence about the location of the Ravager home fleet. It was time to finish this. "All ships, this is Hana," she broadcast. "We've been fighting for 2 years. We've lost friends. We've lost ships. But we've also won every major battle since we started working together. Today we end this war. Are you ready?" The response came in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. "Yes." They were ready. The Ravagers had gathered their remaining forces at the edge of the galaxy, over 1,000 ships, everything they had left. It was still a massive fleet, but it wasn't organized. They relied on numbers, not tactics. Admiral Daehyun commanded the full fleet from his flagship. Around him, officers from 6 different species worked together at their stations. A drifter handled communications. A Vextari managed weapons coordination. A Hellion monitored sensors, and humans oversaw tactical planning. "The enemy is forming up," Lieutenant Nari reported. She had been promoted after the battle at Helios Gate. "They're grouping into one massive formation. Looks like they plan to overwhelm us with a direct charge." "Of course they do," Daehyun said. "It's all they know. Tactical. Give me a battle plan that uses that against them." The plan came together in minutes. The combined fleet would split into 3 groups. One would engage the Ravagers directly, drawing their attention. The other 2 would swing around the flanks through a nearby asteroid field. When the Ravagers committed to the central fight, the flanking groups would hit them from both sides. It was a simple plan. Humans had used similar tactics for thousands of years, but to the Ravagers who only knew how to charge and overwhelm, it would be unexpected. The battle began. The central group, led by Hana, engaged the Ravager fleet head-on. The enemy swarmed forward exactly as predicted, hundreds of ships pushing toward what looked like an outnumbered force. "Central group, start falling back," Daehyun ordered. "Make them chase you. Pull them deeper into the kill zone." Hana's ships retreated in good order, firing as they went. The Ravagers pursued eagerly, thinking they had the advantage. They didn't notice the 2 flanking groups moving through the asteroid field on either side. "All flanking groups," Daehyun said calmly. "Execute attack pattern hammer and anvil. Hit them now." 400 ships emerged from the asteroids and struck the Ravager fleet from both sides. Energy weapons and kinetic rounds tore into ships that were focused on the wrong direction. The Ravagers tried to respond, but they had no organization, no command structure, no tactical flexibility. Hana's central group stopped retreating and pushed forward. Now the Ravagers were caught between 3 forces, taking fire from all directions. Council ships that had once fought in rigid formations now moved like a pack of predators, covering each other, concentrating fire, using every tactic the humans had taught them. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Ravager fleet was destroyed. Less than a dozen of their ships managed to escape into deep space. The Council fleet had lost 43 ships, a painful number, but nothing compared to what they would have lost 2 years ago. "All ships cease fire," Daehyun ordered. "The enemy is broken. The war is over." 3 months later, Ambassador Yuna stood in the council chamber once again, but this time the atmosphere was different. The aliens looked at her with respect now, not contempt. They had learned what humanity could teach them, and it had saved their civilization. Arbiter Kelthanis spoke for the council. "Ambassador Yuna, Captain Minho, Admiral Daehyun, and all humans who have served alongside us. The council wishes to formally thank you. You showed us how to survive a threat we couldn't have faced alone. You taught us that honor and survival are not the same thing." "You're welcome," Yuna replied, "but I hope you understand what you've learned. Once you know how to fight this way, you can't unknow it. Once you've seen real war, you can't go back to ritual combat. The galaxy has changed." "We know," Kelthanis said quietly. "We've discussed this extensively. The proving system is officially ended. From now on, all Council species will maintain military forces trained in human combat doctrine. We will establish permanent military academies. We will prepare for real threats, not ritual duels." "That's wise," Daehyun said. "But remember, military power is dangerous. You need civilian control. You need rules about when and how force can be used. Humanity has learned these lessons the hard way over thousands of years. Don't repeat our mistakes," a Vextari representative stood. It was Kesh, the former merchant who was now a junior officer. "General Taeyang has been teaching us about military ethics and civilian oversight. It's challenging. We're not used to questioning orders or thinking about the politics of warfare." "You'll learn," Taeyang said. "It takes time, but it's important. Soldiers need to know how to fight, but they also need to know why they fight and when not to fight. That's what separates an army from a mob." The session continued for hours, discussing the future of galactic defense. Treaties were signed. Training programs were formalized. Human military advisors would be stationed across Council space. teaching the hard lessons that Earth had learned over millennia of conflict. As the official business concluded, Lieutenant Sunho found himself back in a training simulator. Across from him was a young Vextari pilot, learning the same evasive maneuvers that had shocked the galaxy 2 years ago. "I can't do this," the alien said in frustration. "My body isn't made for these kinds of movements." "The G-forces are too much. Your body will adapt," Sunho said patiently. "Mine did. It takes practice. The first few times I did combat maneuvers, I threw up. Then I got better. You will too. Why is it so important to move like this? Why can't we just use better shields?" Sunho thought about how to explain it. "Because there's always someone with a better weapon. Always someone with more firepower. But if you can move, if you can think, if you can adapt, you have a chance. That's what humanity learned. That's what kept us alive when we had nothing else." The young Vextari tried again. His movements were clumsy and his technique was poor, but he was trying. He was learning. Slowly, the entire galaxy was learning. Captain Minho stood with Admiral Dae-hyun on the observation deck of the Council Station, watching ships from a dozen species move through space in organized formations. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Minho asked. "Teaching them all this?" Dae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. "I think we did the necessary thing. The Ravagers proved that the galaxy isn't safe. There will be other threats. The Council species needed to know how to defend themselves.